Richard,
Hey, Keith Jones.
good to
I'm
see
glad,
you.
glad you found my address.
I did. How's the weather? You're in your office today, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in my office. I got some work I got to clean up, so I couldn't do it with the nice set behind me. So what you got is a prison wall and an office machine, which are kind of my closest buddies these days.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Hey, I thought we would do a quick show on how you measure goodness in yourself and in others. And
I
really, it really is about yourself because you got no control over others and you don't want to judge other people. But really, how you measure goodness.
Man, I think we could start with your plant because it's getting a lot of attention and looks very good. That,
Thank
that
you.
is
Thank you.
beauty. Is that real?
Yeah. No. I wish you would have asked me that off camera.
Well, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful fake, and
Yeah,
if nothing, I really respect perfect fakes.
this thumb is not green. uh,
All right, man. Well, you kick it off. Give me your thoughts.
how I measure goodness is I measure it and not about what you say, but how you show up and treat other people.
Oh man. Yeah.
Period. I mean, I think in a nutshell, my thing is I have three things that I really try to live my life by, and that is be kind, be my best, and to serve. Be kind, be my best, and to serve. And all of that has to do with other people. Like in my life is geared toward other people, and so I think that says it, man. I think when people talk about me, uh, I would like to be talked about as someone who is giving and loving toward others. And so that's how I measure goodness in myself and other people. And that means not judging. That means not making enemies of other people that disagree with me. That means being inclusive of other people. Um, and it means seeing the humanity in everyone. And if I can do those things, then I feel like, I'm doing well on the goodness meter.
Well, you're right up there, man. Because I think anybody that's come in contact with you has had an intimate experience based on the feeling that you really give a damn about them. You really care about them. You make eye contact. You let them finish their thoughts. You listen. You're not preoccupied with other things, and you're always looking at something in a way where, oh, that's great. How can I improve that? How did you pull that off? Oh, well, this is really an interesting thing. You're a guy that's always reinforcing others, and that's an amazing quality. That's something that I think we would all love to have in our parents or the people that were our mentors when we were growing up. Someone would constantly find you doing something great, catching you in the act of doing something good instead of catching you doing something bad. And that's what you do as an adult with others. When other people are on the squat rack, you're talking about how great they're doing. You're not talking about, that slew foot and the drifted shoulder, right? You've got something great to say. And people not only respond to that, but they feel warm and they tend to pass that on. I think goodness, like the kind that you've described with your own core values, where you're serving others and you're grateful and you're feeling kind, that multiplies geometrically. One person does that, another person feels it and returns it. It's a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy that goes round and round and round and is inexhaustible if you can get on that merry-go-round and start it. But a lot of people can't. A lot of people are stuck in judgment and criticism and self-denial and self-hate. And I think it's very difficult to make anything good come of any of those qualities.
Well, Rick, thank you for the compliment, man. I used to get to that point. It's great to be viewed that way because I'm really setting out to live my life like that. As you know, since I really in earnest started to really change the way that, like as long as you and I've known each other, you know that I've always served in a capacity of other people. I think what's different is that my external showing of how I show up for people is now 100% influenced with what's going on with me internally. Before, back in the day, when I would give a compliment in the squat rack about, let's say, great job and good effort, in my mind, I would be thinking about that slew foot. So So, so I was the way that I showed up, I think it's the way that a lot of people show up. And when I've talked to parents, and I've had the opportunity to work with their kids and do some accountability coaching to create a partnership between the kids and the parents at home, as well as in the kids' class, at school with their teachers and classmates. One thing that I noticed early on is a lot of parents are really driven. They are incredibly successful. Their intentions is to be good parents and raise successful kids. And sometimes the success part is more important than raising good kids. And so it's all about how they do in school. And so it's a lot. It's kind of light on serving other people and being thankful and grateful. But when you walk in with me, we have two conversations. The first thing is like, hey, listen, when you walk in, we're going to help create the space together. And the two words I want to hear the most are thank you. And you're going to get it back from me. So if I say, hey, you did a good job, I want you to say, thank you, Keith. If I say, hey, I need you to, I hand you something or set you up and bring you weights or bring you water, I want you to say, thank you, Keith. And I'm going to do the same to you. And if I tell you to do another set of squats because that last set wasn't your best, I want to hear thank you there too. So I am really big on the gratitude piece. And I think a lot of parents come in, they're really focused on having successful kids so that they have a very a great life as they become an adult. And when I say great life, comfortable, not wanting for anything. But I think the piece that is sometimes missing, not missing, but could also use some attention is being a really good person who's loving and kind to everyone. And so, but the old me before, I really took on everything that you were role modeling for me. And I took on the practice, was one who judged a lot. I say this all the time, man. I would see my thing to comment on everything never shut off. I was a person who, like a lot of parents who are looking for their kids to be successful before more so than being good. Like most parents, I would look at a kid and I would look at a person and see what was missing, not what was already there, not what was always good. So let's take, for example, that a kid does, okay in school, not great, or certainly not consistent with what their talent and effort would be. Let's say they get C's instead of the A's that they're capable of getting. And they, make a lot of other kind of poor choices and behaviors, but they do one thing really, really well. Like they took out the trash that day. And the parent will not even see the trash being taken out. They can't even acknowledge that. So I think what I began to do as I embraced the practice was I stopped looking for what was missing or wrong with people.
That's good.
And I started to see what was good and what was present. And I really started training myself to not to have a comment about everything, like, and just observing and being with that. So I think that has really quieted the internal dialogue in my head that's always trying to speak to me and direct me and how to view people or how to judge situations. That by quieting that down, I created this opening to where the good in me could come out. And so that I could do good things and do good deeds. And so that's allowed me to show up the way that you now describe me.
That's interesting is I'm wondering, I'm sure people who think about goodness and look at their own lives sometimes say, well, I'm going to be good once I make that enough money. That's my goal. So I can not worry about my own issues or my family's economic stability. And I'm going to be good once I win this case and I get the respect of my peers. I'm going to be good once I get this divorce and I can get this terrible nagging off of me. I'm going to be good, and the list goes on and on. It's a list of forever postponement. And so one of the things I think that we have to be mindful of is, as you pointed out, when you open your heart and you hold space for other people to be the way they are and hold space for yourself, to allow yourself to move into a more loving place, things start to happen. Pema Chodron, who's a Buddhist monk, says that when you start down the path of enlightenment, your first step is to begin where you are. And so you have to recognize, okay, I'm a little materialistic. I'm a little selfish. Maybe I'm focusing on my own needs more than anybody else's, but I'm aware of it. And that's the first step. I don't want to be this way. I want to have an open heart, but I'm afraid that if I have an open heart, I'm going to neglect my family's financial health, or I'm going to neglect my own reputation, or I'm going to stumble in a way that will be worse. And what will I have to show for it? Well, all of those things, in my judgment, are false. And it seems to me, my experience has been, and maybe for you too, that as you open your heart and you hold space for yourself and others, and you let that natural human goodness come out, more things come back. A lot of stuff happens to you that you were struggling to get before that just shows up. Now that's not automatic, and you shouldn't go down a step, take the path of enlightenment, going down the steps that you need to go with the idea that you're going to get something great out of it. It's its own reward. And
Absolutely.
I think that's what you're experiencing, and that's wonderful to see. I don't think there's anybody who has had you as a trainer or an advisor or a coach who would think that you were not absolutely genuine in your belief that you wanted them to succeed and do their best. And I don't think you can fake that. At some point, it comes out, and it doesn't come out with you. And that's because you have gone through enough stuff in your life, and it made it an important point for you to have that at the primary purpose of your mission in life. We all have that sense of purpose. And I think there is an innate sense in all of us that we want to help others, and we want to be our best selves, and we want to be good. But the problem is we overlay that with all the reasons why we can't, or we delay it because we think we have to do other things first. And it's just the opposite. That comes first, and then the rest of the stuff unfolds.
100%, Rick. Thank you for sharing that, because I completely agree. What I said before, that informs how I go about the doing part of my life. So in terms of being kind, being open, approaching everyone with an open heart, or seeing everybody as a friend, even though they may not see me as a friend, but coming from that space of connecting and seeing the humanity in other people, because that's my starting point, it informs the doing in my life, whether it's going to school or exercising or doing something in my career that informs it. I think an important thing to also mention is that I talked about how I wasn't that way, and I would look at what was wrong with people, and I would have a comment internally. If I got around somebody who saw the world as I saw it, then I would find agreement and express it to them. But normally it was just not this constant dialogue. So how did I move from that space to the space that I'm in now? Because the space before, I was still doing things and pursuing goals in life and being kind and serving other people, but I was having something going on inside of me. And the difference between the two is now my internal dialogue is reflective of, my internal behavior is reflective of what's going on inside. And there is this synergy between the two.
There you go.
And I can be completely authentic, but how did I get from there to here? And for me, what it was I had to really understand that this other piece of me, with the loving, kind dialogue that was going in and how I saw the world and other people, brought me peace. And like you said, it was its own reward. And I valued that. Like I wanted that all the time. Who wants to feel upset, agitated, and all the time? I guess some people do. But for someone like me who wants to be conscious, suffer or be peaceful, it's an easy decision for me. So I began to look at what are the things that would contribute to me falling back to my old ways, that old way of being. And I said, they got to go. So I started eliminating those things from my life. And I didn't listen, I didn't miss out. Like life was better. I start Sleeping is amazing when, you know, you're not out doing things and engaging in behavior that you shouldn't be, whether it's out hanging out or drinking with friends, you know, excessively, because I think it's healthy to do all that, but to do it excessively, or judging people, or engaging in things that create enemies to other people. It's amazing how better your sleep is and how much more time you have on your hands. You can get a lot done. I've got so much done, man, in the last 5 years, man, that I didn't get done in 20. So it was important for me to really disengage those things that took me away from that. And that includes relationships or friendships or associations that were not open and inclusive of other people in humanity. Like I've had friends in my past that they were threatened by others. I had this one friend that we were looking at a magazine, and it was entrepreneurs. And I said, man, it's so cool. You know, this person is on the cover of this magazine. He's like, I'm not looking at that until I'm on the cover. You know, like he couldn't even celebrate someone else's success because he had this scarcity thing that was going on for him. Or people that look at like someone who looks different or thinks different than them, you know, they're unable to see the humanity in other people. So I had to make sure whether it's relationship or what I listened to or read was not detracting from me being peaceful, being kind, being loving, and serving, and that I was able to give to when I measure my goodness, that I was able to do it objectively, and that there was not this cognitive dissonance between what my attitudes and values and my attitudes and values were when compared to my behavior. Like they matched up. Like that was super important to me. And I think that's how you can measure someone's goodness, is when those two match up.
Yeah, I think there's a great challenge that all of us have in trying to satisfy our own needs and our own ambitions, and do it in a way that doesn't hurt other people, but also at the same time do it in a way that has as its main component a feeling that you're helping other people by doing whatever you're doing in your work, even if it's something that's not a traditional service kind of job like art or retail sales. You can do any job in the world with an eye toward helping someone, whether it's a customer or someone who needs advice about a particular product. You can do it in a way that is helpful to another. And if we build on those little tiny things where we're helping people all the time, that tends to become habitual. And you tend to forget yourself in those kinds of situations. I think I've said this before in the show, but every once in a while I'll get a little victim-y and I recognize it. I'll be feeling sorry for myself. And I haven't done it since I've been in Sedona, but when I was in Phoenix, when I would get like that, I would go to the burn unit at the Maricopa County Hospital, and you're not supposed to just wander the halls, but I would go in and I'd bring flowers and maybe a football or some toy or something, and go look at the kids who are burned. I mean, if you think your life is rough, buddy, go to a burn unit and you see these little tykes with their arms bandaged or their eye bandaged, and they're just bewildered. I mean, they're scared to death, but they're just bewildered where the hell they're at. That's the way to turn it around. And the only reason I bring that up is anything that gets you to focus outside of yourself, get your head out of your butt and you're looking at other people and you realize that that is where the juice is. That's where the real joy of life is. You can apply that same principle in every aspect of your life, and particularly in your career. It's when we start forgetting about the people we're helping to make money, and focusing on the money and the materiality and the security, that's where the problem comes. We don't ever get to the point as humans where it's enough. That's the problem with basic human acquisitiveness. It's never enough. There's always something better. There's always another thing to do. You got a beautiful wife, let's have two. Well, maybe I need a mistress. I got a Mercedes. Well, then I need a Lamborghini. I got $1 million in the bank. I need two. That kind of never arriving idea at the expense of your own humanity and serving others creates a lot of suffering. And so when we're talking about suffering, many times what we're talking about is suffering that's self-imposed. And frankly, my experience of an old guy, 71, 72 now, next couple of months, as an old guy, the suffering all comes from you, comes from me, comes right. I create my own suffering, whether I'm irritated about traffic or something somebody else does. By being irritated, by having a judgment, I'm creating my own anxiety. And like you, I realized a while back that I didn't want to do that anymore. I don't like feeling, you know, crummy. I want to feel good. And that sense of goodness comes from serving others. And you don't do it because you want to be good. You do it because it feels right. It feels natural and it feels rewarding.
Absolutely, Rick. I totally agree, man. I think too, when I am, really, if I take it outside of just looking at like how I measure my own goodness, but if I look at like if I was to measure someone else's goodness, and when I say measure, but I mean observe, not judge it, because I'm not going to love you less or think less of you if you don't do it the way that I think you might want to do it. But that is like I can have people that are really, really kind and loving and giving to me. And so that's one way to like say, oh, I can measure this person's goodness based on how they treat me. That's one way.
Yeah.
But I want to expand it beyond that. How do you treat everybody? Like that's all of humanity as a whole. Like, how do you treat everybody? Because it's easy for me to be kind and to be loving and measure my goodness with people that agree with me. But what about people that I feel that are out to hurt me?
Yeah.
Or I have this identity that, people are out to take from me or deprive me of opportunities. How do I measure the goodness, when it comes to them, in my relationship with them? And
Is it even true though? I mean, we tend to have this idea that there is scarcity in that people are trying to get things from you. And that's part of this fear-based stuff that we're experiencing in the country, that we're all different. And those people are trying to take our stuff.
right, right.
We have to have an attitude about those people. And it's not even true.
It's not even true. Like it's subjective. It's subjective. It's all made up, man. And what I love about science is that the minute, like if I go in with a theory, the way that you go in with a hypothesis is you're looking for your hypothesis to not be, to not be true.
You're trying to disprove it.
Disprove it. You're trying to disprove it.
Right.
And that's not what most people do. They're trying to confirm it, to validate it. And so for me, I'm trying to play a really big game. So if I'm evaluating, observing how goodness is measured, it's not just how you measure, how you display goodness, exhibit goodness to people that you agree with or like. It's how you do it to everybody.
Here's an example of that. I think you really like this one. And you probably do it yourself unconsciously, but when I was dating 100 years ago, Tom Jefferson and I used to double J, we used to go out to restaurants. And one of the things that I always looked at was to see how my date treated the help.
Yes.
You can really tell if somebody is demanding and short, or they don't make eye contact, or they mumble, or they're not respectful. That's pretty much how they really are, even if they're loving and kind to you. And that tells you a lot.
That tells a lot. And I know that in my relationships, people were definitely able to say that, before I started to really evaluate myself and really hold myself to a higher standard of how I wanted to show up. And that's to connect with humanity. So I think those are just some keys that, I use to make sure that I'm living my best life in regards to my best life is consistent with being kind, being loving, being inclusive, being grateful. That's my best life. And I think I measure my goodness that way. So Rick, I'm giving you permission that if I don't show up the way that that I want to show up, I need you to call me out on it.
I thought I already had that. I thought we've been doing that for a while.
We have been doing it, but I just want to make a public declaration.
Okay, cool. Yeah, all right, great.
Man, do you want to say anything in closing?
No, I just want to say that, you have a wonderful, wonderful way of looking at life and making people feel that they're their best selves. And people, I think, in turn, try to be their best selves for you. And that is one wonderful step for all of the people that you know, and it rebounds to the rest of us. And I think you feel the same thing coming back from others when you've helped them and they've been around you a while. So that feeding is so important. It's a synergy that develops from that mutual love and respect. And there's not enough of it in the world. And by God, I'm sure grateful you got it, and I'm your buddy.
And I'm grateful you do the same for me, man. You're such a great example of me. So, man, I love you, man. Adios. I stole your word. Adios.
Adios, amigo. Happy birthday, man.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Bye-bye.
All right. Adios.